Hello, everyone, and welcome into an emergency edition of the Bunt Takes Pod. I just want to talk a little bit about the Lindy Ruff hiring quick. I know that we've already had Dwayne and Maniac and a bunch of guys from Trainwreck talk about Lindy Ruff returning to Buffalo, but I just want to get my thoughts out there because I feel like there is some division, people that love the move, other people that despise the move, and I just want to say I think it is a great hire for the Buffalo Sabres, but not for the reasons that many people think. Almost everything I'm hearing right now is that they made this move because of nostalgia or that Lindy is a reminder of better times for the franchise. My thought process is Lindy Ruff is the right coach for this team right now in Buffalo. We're talking about a coach that was the NHL Coach of the Year just last season. Now, I know he got fired by New Jersey this year, but Lindy Ruff is a guy that can still coach. He won 52 games with the New Jersey Devils just 2 seasons ago. And there's things that we can take away from his recent success in New Jersey that will translate in Buffalo. Chad DiDomenicis had a great article about a month ago about how he originally went into the process thinking that Lindy Ruff was not a good decision for the Sabres after he was fired by the Devils. Then he looked into it and he had a 180. And some of the things that he went into were 5-on-5 team performance. The Devils were tremendous 5-on-5. They stayed consistent 5-on-5 with Lindy Ruff in charge. He inherited a bad New Jersey team and he made them into a winner. Now, I know they regressed this year, goaltending a huge factor. Why? But there's things that translate from that New Jersey team to this Sabres team. Another thing, counterattack. The Sabres were at their best last season when they had an unbelievable counterattack overall. Now, that kind of went away this year. Is that something Lindy could bring back to Buffalo? Now, the concerns would be goaltending. The goaltending in New Jersey was horrific. Now, is that a problem in Buffalo? Probably not with UPL playing the way he did this season. So there are things about Lindy that translate that could be the guy that gets them over the hump. Now, I understand the nostalgia factor. He's been the head coach in Buffalo for 14 plus years, was a player for nearly a decade. He's beloved in the Buffalo community. He's blue collar. He's one of us. And you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with that if that's not the main reason why he came to Buffalo. I don't think that Terry Pegula made this move saying, I just want Lindy Ruff because he used to win in Buffalo. I want him back in Buffalo. And we're going to get fans in the stands. Now, that very well could play a role in decisions, and it's not a bad thing, but I don't think that's the main reason why. Lindy went to the playoffs twice in Dallas. He made the playoffs in New Jersey. He has shown that he can win at different stops, and there's a lot of things about his track record in Buffalo that give me encouragement when thinking that he can get this team over the edge. A lot of people talk about how he made the playoffs 8 out of 14 years with the Sabres. And now looking back, there's a lot of people that say, hindsight, well, he never won a cup. Well, you know what Lindy did his entire time in Buffalo, his first tenure here, was get more out of less. The Sabres didn't have great rosters when he took over. They had Dominic Hasek, Miroslav Shatan, a few good defensemen, and they found a way to get on playoff runs. The first year, Eastern Conference Finals against Washington. Then the next year, they go to the Stanley Cup Finals against Dallas. A few more good seasons. Then the issues with Rigas become too much. They trade away Hasek. They go through a rebuilding phase. Then Regeer gets guys like Chris Gradden, Danny Briere, Chris Drury to Buffalo. Then post-lockout, when the rules change, the Sabres dominate once again. That's when we have the 2 trips back to the Eastern Conference Finals, a President's Trophy. What happens? The Sabres let Drury and Briere walk, and they weren't ready to sustain that level of success post-Drury Briere with guys like Palmaville, Roy, Vanek, Miller, Afinogenov, and the like, Connolly. And they had a couple years where they were down seasons, But then they rebounded again, won the Northeast Division, lost against Boston in the playoffs, and the next year they lose against Philadelphia in the playoffs. But the point being, when Lindy had his struggles in Buffalo the first time around, it wasn't that Lindy couldn't coach. It was more so he was always let down by an incompetent organization that either let his best players walk away via trade like Hasek or in free agency like Drury Briere, or it was just an aging roster at the end. But he continuously always got them back to contending. There is a lot of reasons to think that Lindy can have success with this team. He holds players accountable. He doesn't put up with crap. That's what this team needs right now. This is what they were begging for during locker cleanout day. They want a coach that is going to take them to that next step. I used to cover professional hockey, ECHL. I know it's a far away from the NHL, but I was a sports anchor for 3 years. I covered a lot of professional sports. I covered college sports. I've talked to coaches, and everything I've ever been told by professional hockey players is that most of these coaches are running similar systems. Yes, there's some differences. Some guys are more aggressive. Some guys are more conservative and the like, but they all run very similar systems overall. Now, how you manage players, how you develop players, that is a big factor in team success in building rosters over a period of time. Lindy Ruff is about building a team approach. That's why he's had success at every stop he's been at. You look at this young Sabres team right now. They need that accountability. They have the talent. I was listening to radio earlier, Mike Shope and the Bulldog, and there's people saying Kevin Adams hasn't given the Sabres a good enough roster. No, they have a great young roster. They are full of first-round picks on offense, defense, great young goaltending prospects. You look at Tage Tuck, with Tage Thompson, Alex Tuck. You got Quinn, Cousins, Peterka, Benson. Like, it goes on and on and on with the forwards. You have guys like Savoy, Oslin, Roseanne, Kulik in the system. Defensively, you got Darlene, Power, Byram, Samuelson, Ryan Johnson. There's guys, UPL, Devin Levi. Like, there's going to be some moves this offseason. They're going to bring some guys in. They're going to fix the bottom line. But the core of this team is basically in place right now. So what do they need? They need to take that next step. Now, Granato did a great job developing these guys because you need to be patient developing young players. They have to make mistakes. They have to learn from mistakes. And I think that's why you saw so many players under Granato's tenure like Thompson, Middlestat, Peterka, even Cousins last year when he had his 31 goals, have these rapid ascensions. But Granato wasn't the guy that could hold these guys, these players accountable and get them to take that next step with strategy, with technique. That's why Lindy's here. He's the 5th winningest coach in the history of the NHL. And we have people complaining because they think, oh, he's going to be too tough on these players. No, Lindy has already talked about this in the past, how these young players in the NHL right now, you have to coach them up differently. You can't just be hard on every single guy. You have to treat everybody differently. That doesn't mean you don't bench somebody when they don't execute. You can still bench people. You can still be hard on them. But everybody's going to react to things differently. I think Lindy, if he hadn't adapted over time, this would be a problem. But he has shown that he can adapt. That's why this is a positive. He's not just a 64-year-old coach who's going to do things the way he did it 20 years ago. He's willing to change. System-wise, he's not just a guy that's going to play conservative hockey. His ability to counterattack, his consistent, solid 5-on-5 offensive results show he's a coach that has been able to grow with the game of hockey. That this is not a coach that's stuck in 1998 that thinks everything has to be slow moving. You need to have guys always be physical every moment, and that we're going to play these traps and all these other things. Like there's these narratives that Lindy is just stuck with, this old school hockey that just don't fly. Yes, when Hasek was the goalie in Buffalo, they played defensive hockey and games were boring and they were low scoring. Do we not remember the Danny Briere and Chris Drury and Maxima Finneganov and Jason Ponville, Derek Roy, Thomas Vanek days? Those teams could score goals. Then in Dallas, they lit the lamp up consistently. New Jersey, lighting up the lamp consistently. Lindy Ruff teams can put pucks in the back of the net, and that's what we want to see in Buffalo. So I'm excited about that move. I'm excited about what it means for these prospects. And I think there's a lot of reasons for optimism. Like I said, nostalgia, just an added bonus. I know people are going to complain about it. I look forward to it. I said when Lindy was fired by New Jersey that Buffalo should bring him back. Now, I didn't expect him to become the Sabres head coach. I thought maybe there's a consultant role. Maybe you can become a president of the organization some way, in an advisory role for the Sabres. I think his voice was something that was needed around the Sabres that would give them a level of respect. When Granato left, that's when I first thought, okay, Lindy really does have a chance to be a head coach here again. And I think this is going to have ripples across the NHL. The Sabres have been a laughingstock for the last 13 years, from ownership down. Lindy changes that. Lindy is respected in the NHL. He is not a Ralph Kruger. He is not a Don Granato. He is not a Ted Nolan or a Ron Ralston, Phil Housley. Lindy Ruff is a proven winner. He's been in tough situations in Buffalo before, and I think he's going to be the right guy to get them over the top once again. I can't wait for this offseason. There will be moves to be made. I can guarantee it. You can go to the bank. The Sabres are going to make some moves this offseason. I think the fourth line is going to be rapidly different. How they handle the third line will be interesting, but there will be some things happening. They're going to be aggressive, and this team is going to be starting next season in a spot where there's no excuses for them to miss the playoffs and have this drought continue any longer. At the beginning of this year, I had them missing it. You look at the analytics, you look at the offseason moves, there was a lot of reasons to question, did they do enough to put themselves in the postseason? I said no. I said 90 points. They ended up with 84. I had them missing it. They did miss it. But Washington is not a better team than the Sabres. They're not. The Sabres would win a series against Washington. Last year, they missed it by 1 point. They're right on the edge of making it. And my guarantee right now, as I end this video, is that you will see the Buffalo Sabres in the postseason next year. The Sabres are going to make the playoffs in 2025. I said a month ago that I thought it was likely, but I didn't put the guarantee label on it. I am now guaranteeing it. The Buffalo Sabres are going to make the playoffs next year. You can laugh. You can call me whatever you want. You can call me a homer. I have had success projecting stuff like this in the past. I was ahead of the curve with the Bills before Josh Allen made that leap. I have been very close on these predictions in the past. The Sabres have shown me, talent-wise, they have the ability to take that next step. Just waiting on it happening right now. And Lindy Ruff is the move that puts me over the edge. If Don Granato was still the head coach, might question it. Might be maybe like 60, 70%. I think Lindy is going to be the guy. So thanks for tuning in. I hope Sabres fans, you're happy about it. You got a winner back in the building. You got a guy that's a blue-collar Buffalo man who's eager to be part of this franchise, eager to make them into a winner again. And who knows? It might just be sooner than later, but let's hope it happens so we can all have something to cheer about at KeyBank Center going forward. Let's go Buffalo.